And now, it's time to get serious, folks. It's our tradition to present informative talks. And tonight, we have Professor Thaddeus Van Ambridge, a man well known in every country except for Belgium. I'm sure we'll all be quite fascinated by his latest adventure. Professor Van Ambridge, please.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I am Thaddeus Van Ambridge, A.B., M.A., Ph.D., D.Phil, Professor of Botany, author of the erudite monograph Some Thoughts on the Origin of Indo-Chinese Place Names, discoverer of the Shinga Rift in German East Africa, and colonel in the New Hampshire State Militia, lately on campaign in Cuba against the Spanish Empire. Imagine my surprise when I received a telegram from Murad Ibrahim Ibn Aziz, the Sultan of Bukit-Tinggi, Sumatra, imploring my assistance in the dispatch of a tiger of fantastic proportions that had been eating the villages about Bukit-Tinggi. A dozen or so had been consumed already. The exact count is difficult because of the lack of colonial administration in that obdurate sultanate. My reputation as an intrepid hunter and crack shot is known world around. Actually, I wasn't too surprised to receive the telegram. I gathered my things, my .458 Martini Express rifle, my .38 caliber service revolver, several hundred rounds of ammunition, a complete tropical outfit, and survey tools in case I should persuade the Sultan to loan me 1,000 of his subjects to construct a road system through the jungles of Sumatra. I set out the next morning from the port of New York for Paris in the SS Gibraltar. I crossed the ocean eventlessly, except we did receive a cable in Morse, which I translated, stating that the Bukit-Tinggi tiger had made off with several more of the Sultan's wives, and would be put on all possible speed. We arrived in Havre with our bunkers empty, and I boarded a special train for Paris. While on the train, the French Academy consulted me on the impact of the Eiffel Tower on the cityscape of Paris. I do hold an honorary degree in aesthetics from the University of Perugia for my treatise Dei Palazzi Brutti del Quattrocento d'Italia. I advised the Academy to let the Eiffel Tower stand. I crossed Paris to the Gare de Lyon, where the Orient Express had been held for me for 3 hours. Les pauvres passagers. Our route naturally took us across the Balkans, land of petty dictators, Balkan bandits. You may rest assured that I traveled with my revolver drawn in case there should be an incident. There was no incident, but the porters did show a curious reluctance to serve me. In due course, we arrived in... Shortly we got to Constantinople, recently rashly renamed something or other, the city of the Golden Horn, Hagia Sophia, and vacation spot of my dearest darling, Schleckenschloss. I briefly paid my respects to the Sultan, who insisted that I accept the services of his loyal bodyguard, Kemal Atatürk, to be my valet. We boarded the steamship Ombudsman and sailed south through Suez, the Red Sea, as fast as steam and steel could stroke until we stopped. Dead in the water, engine failure. The engineers were completely baffled until I, with my thorough knowledge of hydrothermodynamics, set things straight in about a half an hour. That evening, in the ship's saloon, I lectured on hydrothermodynamics. Every member of the audience was held rapt in fascination. We put into Aden to take on water, but when we arrived at that city, we found it in complete confusion. The two sons of the late Sheikh had incited civil war in their contest for the throne. I used my long-standing friendship with the local holy man, Imam Joseph Ibn Aziz, to gain audience with the younger son, Prince Nerbin Sikh, a healthy young man, to whom I administered a phrenological examination. It became immediately apparent to me from the bumps on his head he was completely unfit to rule. I used my influence with the Yamin to decide the contest in favor of the eldest son, and the youngest son disappeared without trace, probably in consideration of his health. We set off across the Indian Ocean and had just sighted Ceylon when we discovered a stowaway, none other than the young Prince Nair. So we touched in Ceylon to put the prince off, and while the crew were convincing the young Arab to accept the hospitality of the local Tamal, their coach accosted me. I was accosted by the coach of their baseball team, the Tamal Tigers, for some tips on hit and run. And on my way back to the ship, I noticed an undescribed variety of reminiscent, which I collected and sent back to my colleagues at the University of Michigan Botanical Garden for propagation and dissemination. It's come to be called fondly buckthorn by the Nature Conservancy of Michigan. We set out again, but were forced to put into Madras to take on coal. I took that opportunity to visit the mausoleum of Ski-Boot Slalom, the greatest of the moguls. Upon exiting that edifying edifice, I stopped to dispatch a large carnivore that was troubling the tourists. I learned immediately that it was not native in India, but an American grizzly from the private menagerie of the Raja of Mulligatawny, and terribly valuable. In view of this, I insisted that the Raja keep the carcass, of which I had intended to make a splendid specimen, and hastily returned to the ship. We set off again, and in due course landed at Kuala Lumpur in Malay. It crossed the Strait of Malacca by junk, arriving at the village of Labuhan, set south through the jungle, and was gratified as we neared Bukit Tinggi to observe that the villages were depauperate. Moved testimony to the ferocity of the beast I had sworn to kill. My victory o'er this beast would be the stuff of legend. This, ladies and gentlemen, is Capra domestica, the common goat. I tied a specimen of this to a stake in a clearing in the jungle and sat under cover of bush, waiting. I had not long to wait. About moonrise, I perceived the stealthy figure circling the clearing. The moonlight glinted in its yellow eyes, a sight to make a man's blood run cold. Who can imagine the depths of ferocity behind those predatory eyes? And then it happened. Grabbed the goat, I fired, blinding light, deafening report, and the loudest bleat I'd ever heard from a tiger, which was only natural because in the darkness I'd shot the goat. These things do happen once in a while, and it was a good thing in this case, because the stealthy figure I'd seen was not the Bukit Tinggi tiger. It was a hungry villager who couldn't believe his good luck at finding an unattended goat tied to a stake in a clearing in the jungle. I sent the goat off to be mounted under 3 bearers to Kuala Lumpur. I understand the taxidermy was difficult because the beast had been rent in 3 pieces by the force of my shot. I gave the trophy to my preparatory school, St. Shibboleth, as momentum by inertia. The Sultan wanted to punish the felonious filcher with death or something worse, but I had a better idea. Why not bait the tiger with its favorite food? Again, I waited under cover of bush. And then the tiger attacked. I placed the rifle to my shoulder, I fired a single shot behind his, and he dropped dead in his tracks. I untied the villager, fully expecting him to congratulate me on my excellent marksmanship, but instead he ran immediately into the forest without so much as a how do you do. You can find an ingrate in any part of the world. The Sultan, however, was not ungrateful. He awarded me with the rank Amir of Bukit Tinggi. And that's why, whenever I'm in Sumatra, I am known as Van Ambridge Pasha Ibn Aziz. Unfortunately, that rank did not entitle me to conscript 1,000 of the Sultan's subjects to build a road system through the Sumatran jungle. So I left Sumatra, a roadless, if somewhat safer, wilderness. Thank you for your attention.